Welcome to the party. I'm not here right now, but I want you to listen very carefully. These guys are very funny, so pay attention. Enough talk. It's showtime.
Hello and welcome to Bags of Action episode 88. My name's Steve, my co-host is Pete.
Hello.
We're back for an episode. We'll do them every now and then when we feel like it. So we're here, we're back.
Yes, we are. We're not on hiatus officially, we're just busy.
Yeah. But there's still weekly episodes on the YouTube channel. Don't forget to check them out. But tonight we are going to talk with spoilers about the Amazon series Reacher. This is, of course, based upon the novels by Lee Childs, and it is featuring Alan Ritchson as the titular character, Jack Reacher, and not teeny tiny Tommy Cruise.
So, yes. See, I never watched those films. Have you seen the films?
Yes.
Have you seen them both? Have you seen both?
I have seen both of them because Kobe Smulders is in one, and I like Kobe Smulders.
You're honest. That's good. I didn't realise that Christopher McQuarrie wrote and directed or adapted and directed the first one.
Right.
And obviously, he wrote Usual Suspects back in the day. He's done a couple of the Mission Impossible films, I think.
Yes.
So he's really good. But I think at the time, I was all the backlash of this is supposed to be a guy who's 6'5", not 5'6". It's like the reverse Wolverine issue, really.
Yeah.
And so then I was like, I will watch it eventually. And then the second come out, I said, and then time went past. And then I thought, I can't be bothered. And this won me over, though, because what are the books? Have you read the books?
I've read the first one a long time ago, and I haven't read any of the others because there's now 26, I think. 26,
but I believe the guy has stood down and he's letting his brother take over. Yeah.
Yes, his brother is now the lead author on them, but his name is still on them. So I don't know if he kind of does the rough plan and his brother writes them or something. But yes, his brother is now taking over, Lee Child.
Okay. And do you know where the name Lee Child comes from? Because it's a pen name. It's not his real name.
I did not know that.
Well, it came from, he used to be a TV executive working for Granada Television for ITV, and he was made redundant. And because he was made redundant, he thought, I'm going to go away and write the novel I've always wanted to write. Just what I want to write, not what I think people want to get published, just what I want to write. And obviously, that's worked out rather well for him. But I believe, because he shares his time between the US, the UK, and France. I believe at the time he was staying occasionally in France, or he had a house in southern France, and went with his family. And when he was calling his son or daughter, I'm not sure which, instead of saying, where's the child? Because they're in France, he would say, where's le child?
Really?
I read this in an article.
Oh my God.
It was on the internet. It must be true.
It must be true. Yeah.
And so the running joke was, where's le child? And then he said, what pen are you doing? I know, I'll call myself le child, Lee Child. Where the name came from.
Which sounds so ridiculous. It does. If it's true, that's hilarious.
Apparently so.
Wow.
Yeah. A TV executive for 18 years, lost his job due to restructuring, and then decided to go away and write a novel.
Wow. That's okay. Well, great. Yeah. But I can't really fault him. He's done exceptionally well. And he's done, the series are very, very popular. He's been a bestseller many, many times. And he's made a career over the last, 20 years plus. Yeah. If he does one a year or thereabouts, last 25 years of doing these books. So exceptionally well for him. Yeah, good for him. And now his brother taking over. So the films, do you remember how when you had Clear and Present Danger, and then later on Sum of All Fears, and then, before that we had Hunt for Red October, and it's all the same character with different actors.
Yes.
It's all, Jack Ryan, Harrison Ford, and before that it was Glengarry Glen Ross.
Alec Baldwin.
Thank you. And then later on, we had the new one, and it's fine.
Is Affleck later?
Yeah, Affleck did the last film, and then we've got the TV series. I think that TV series is much closer to the source material as well. And if you view the films as like an alternate version or just like, a different person, it's okay, but it's not Reacher for many reasons, not just the size thing. The films are very, very action focused. They're very, very meant to be blockbustery type thing. And although all of the Reacher books are full of action, it's not in the same capacity. So this first book and series is set in, Bum Hill, nowhere, middle of nowhere. The whole point is he comes to a town in the middle of nowhere for his own reasons, because he's a traveling bum or hobo, as he says, or whatever.
Which we'll come back to that word.
Yeah. That he just arrives at this place because he wants to be there, and he stumbles into something. He doesn't even get to eat his pie before he's arrested. So the films felt very different in tone, is what I'm trying to say. I think they kind of turned the dial up on everything to make it a vehicle for Tom Cruise. And they were fun and they were entertaining and they were exciting. But obviously he was a lot more chatty than Reacher is, because it's Tom Cruise and he wants to have lots of dialogue and, one-liners and stuff. And he was never intimidating. Now, Cruise can be intimidating. You watch Collateral, and he's fun. I give him credit for that. He's so good in that. And he's absolutely menacing. But without all the makeup and without the right circumstances, he was never menacing as Reacher. In this, Alan says nothing for like the first 3 minutes he's on screen, and he's scary as anything. He's terrifying.
It's almost like when you first saw Arnie as the Terminator, in just like the physical presence, doesn't really say anything.
No.
It's interesting you mentioned the Jack Ryan series. There's been people online pushing for a crossover between the two shows.
That would be nice.
Should be interesting. But I came to this completely cold, so I hadn't seen the films, hadn't read the books.
Excellent. Okay.
And didn't even think I'd watch the show. But I saw a trailer. Like, despite what happened with The Man of Steel, I still sometimes allow trailers to influence my opinion on whether I should watch a film or not, or a program.
Yeah.
And I remember watching, I was like, oh, okay, this is very, very, very up my street.
Mm-hmm.
It's a large man beating the bejesus out of other men. Always a fan of that.
Bags of action sounds really good.
Hence this show exists. And there's some wittiness, but it's not really like the Guardians of the Galaxy, like arched inflection, knowingness. It's more the 80s, 90s. Not quite a little bit one-liners, but there's two things I would compare this to that I really, really like, and it was very similar in tone. One of which is Roadhouse.
Yes.
Now, because it's someone with the quiet confidence that whoever they're fighting, they're going to win. But it's not a negative. It's not like, they're going to win again. It's like you just know this person has got a particular set of skills and they know what they're doing. And I think, and in that, the whole thing is, oh, Dalton, I thought you'd be bigger. Everyone who sees him says, I thought you'd be bigger, which is a really clever inversion of at the time when it was Arnie and Sly in most of these films. It's really
absolutely
clever. And this is almost the reverse of that, because every time anyone sees him, they go, look at the size of you. Like, you're huge, you're massive. And at first I was like, oh, this is going to get a bit annoying. But it's like, do you know what? That is exactly what people do. Like, you're tall. I've got a cousin who's 6'7".
Mm-hmm.
I've never been anywhere with him in my life where someone doesn't say to him things like, what's the weather like up there?
Correct.
Or, how do you sit through doors? And I'm surprised he's as patient as he is, to be honest. But it's a similar thing here. And like, we're both fans of strongman, and I've done a bit of training with some strongmen. And I am, in normal life, I'm seen as quite a big bloke. And I've been in rooms with people and they've gone, bloody hell, you're big. And I'm not particularly big at all. It's all relative because they were small. But when you're around these other people who are kind of at that stage, you go, well, he's supposed to be, I think, 6'5" and 250 pounds.
Yep.
When somebody is that physically imposing, you can't help but say something or stare or be a bit taken aback. It's just human nature. So I think, and I really like the fact he can't hide. Like, he's trying to be discreet and he's investigating things, but he also, you can't miss him, can you?
No.
You really can't miss him.
He's not local. That's one thing. Mm-hmm. He's an enormous man. He's wandered into something. And yeah, he doesn't necessarily say a lot. he kind of breaks the mold. Now, some people said, it's wish fulfillment and all this kind of stuff. And I've heard some people say he's a Mary Sue, but I don't agree with that at all, because that basically means they haven't watched the show and they haven't actually paid attention to the character. Because as you said, he does have a particular set of skills. And if you look at the history of the character within the show and from the books, it's suggested that he was in the army, he rose up the ranks, he became a specialist, he ran his own special unit, doing very kind of grey and dodgy things. He's got a history that he's not always happy with. But at the same time, he's not a meathead. He's not a jarhead.
I think he ended up as a military police. So that makes perfect sense. Combat skills and investigation skills. And that's what he does in this program.
Correct.
So like you say, for anyone to say, oh, it's ridiculous, he can do all these things. Is it? Have you heard of training? Have you heard of putting some time in and actually learning to do something?
Yeah.
That's what he's done. Some people actually are really good at multiple things.
I mean, like, this guy can't paint. He probably can't fly a helicopter. There's a million things he can't do, but he can do this.
He can't finish a pie.
No. And the thing is, everything that he can do, he's earned through long experience and training, as you said, and hardship. Whereas some characters in some TV shows and some films, Rey from Star Wars, are the best because it's required for the story, not because they've earned it within the story. Like Luke spent years training with Yoda and all his hardships and up and down and lost his hand and lost his father. Spoilers for Star Wars, by the way, from 40 years ago. But he earned it versus just because the story requires it is totally different. Here, he does lose sometimes. He is nearly shot several times. He is wounded, but he's saved by other people.
No, exactly. And he's got an arc because he's a drifter wandering from town to town because the only thing that centers him, the only person he can rely on is his brother.
Yep.
And it's his brother who's died. So he's suspicious of other people. He's just doing things his own way. And like you say, at first, it is almost like, he's going to sort this out so quickly. But as things get more complicated and he becomes up against more of a political system of the town, he can't do it. And it's almost like he has to realize again that he needs to rely on other people. But he's very selective with who those people are. And I think that's what I like about it. It's like, it's all the best things of a kind of one-man army thing. But it's also an ensemble piece. And it's also... there is character in this. I think some people have dismissed this, it's just an action program. When, that's true. But like the best action, you're invested in the person.
Yeah.
And I think, him turning up in the town and having to adapt to what it's like, you do really kind of feel for the guy.
Yeah. So we talk about some of the physicalities of this. I know we could stick with on Reacher for now, but I've seen interviews and I've watched interviews with Alan, who, is quite a large man anyway. He's actually 6'2". He's not 6'5", but,
They do shoot it quite cleverly to make him look a lot bigger than he is.
Well, it's like they did with Michael Clark Duncan in The Green Mile, who's not actually 6'11" or 7 foot, whatever he is. He's kind of like 6'8", I think. But they made, he's supposed to be enormous, and with cameras and platforms and the rest of it. But Alan's quite a large man. I saw him years ago in Smallville. He was the first on-screen Aquaman.
Okay.
If you didn't know that.
What have I seen him like Titans?
Then he was in Titans as Hawk. And now in there, he's obviously very well built. But for this role, they said, great, you got it after many, many auditions, everything. Please put on 30 pounds. So he went away and put on 30 pounds. I'm like, he's quite a large dude anyway. So they wanted Reacher to be absolutely kind of bursting at the seams. And so he was constantly eating just all the time. Now he's in good shape anyway, but his assistant's job was basically bring him food like every 4 hours. And he's done a lot of work at this point. And he said this was the hardest job he's ever done because every episode required a fight that he was in. Therefore, that was a lot of choreography. Every fight you have to practice for every episode. You have to learn it so you don't hurt anybody whilst shooting the show around all of that and all of the meals. And he's in pretty much every scene apart from ones where Finley's on screen. So it's a lot of work. Now, he loved it. Obviously, it's really got picked up for season 2. But with all of that kind of piled on top of him, you can understand it being the toughest job he's ever done. Hats off for him for doing all that he did with this role.
Yeah, and he's amazing. He's really, really good. And I think you don't necessarily like him straight away, but I think that's kind of a good thing because he's keeping everyone in the town at arm's length. And like almost the audience with it. And it's only through them kind of chipping away at him and getting to see like the layers and find out a bit more about his backstory. Which I think was handled really well. Because in some shows it can be really hackneyed, that kind of stuff, but I think it's really well done in this. And you say he's surrounded by other really good people and really interesting, like defined characters. No one is the obvious person you think they are. They're all slightly different than you imagine.
I love the flashback stuff. I love the fact that we're seeing what he's like now, but you find out little bits and pieces of his army, but then it goes back to his childhood. You see him and his brother Joe. And the actor who plays young Reacher, I just finished watching in a show. Okay. So Maxwell Jenkins plays young Reacher, and he was Will Robinson in Lost in Space. So I was there like, that's Will Robinson. And then it's young Reacher. But I love the fact that even then we see his moral compass. It started with him and his brother as boys because they were sons of their father was in the army. So they grew up on army bases and they moved around. There again, army. He's been around it his entire life. Training, discipline. Funny that. So but even then he was standing up for little guys. Like they were picking on this kid with Down syndrome. Him and his brother took on a bunch of kids. I just like the way they just say, you can't take all of us on. And they take their coats off and put them on a hook. And it's little things that tell you they've done this before. They don't want to get their coat ripped. They're willing to go in and beat the crap out of them and lose, but they're going to do it anyway because it has to be done. And it was so good.
You get a sense that their mother has drummed into them this moral code and their dad has taught them how to fight.
Yeah.
And it's that combination that you do kind of, reminds me a little bit of Lupin in the way that they handle some of the kind of backstory of the character as well. But it's just, I'm like, yep, the person I've just seen as a child, I understand what they're doing. And it's not like Arrow, where at first they're helping and then at some point they're just two other things that kind of get in each other's way.
Yeah.
As they're like, we're going to keep doing flashbacks for 8 years.
Yeah.
In fact, longer than they was away, but never mind. But here, you do see that through line. You're like, okay, every time I get a bit more information about what's happening, and when I'm not sure quite about who he is, I get a little bit more teased out from his past that makes sense of it. So again, the whole kind of Mary Sue arc, it's like, well, no, not really, because we're learning the things that he's been through that got him to this point.
It's just people bitter that they've got a character that's a very large, strong man who's earned it, and they don't seem to like that on TV, except some of the most popular TV shows in recent years have featured some of those characters when they're done well. So we talked about Reacher, obviously. Bosch is a fantastic show about a character who is unwilling to compromise against anything. The system, the police authorities, criminals, he will not compromise his moral code ever. And it gets him into enormous trouble. Brilliant show. It ran for 6 seasons on Amazon, I think, or 5 seasons. And now we're getting another spin-off show from it because it's so good. And they're based upon the books by Michael Connelly. And that's really good. And then, of course, you mentioned Jack Ryan. We've had 2 seasons of that, and that was really good. That's also on Amazon, actually. Done incredibly well. A character who's earned it. And I'm looking forward to that coming back. So you can do action well on TV if the character, in an adult fashion. Now, as you mentioned, Arrow, it started off well, but it fell into a number of traps. And because it has the superhero trappings, it became a version of reality. Whereas Reacher and the other 2 I mentioned are our world now without any kind of paint to make it look pretty. You get warts and all with all of his encounters. Like just that first meeting where he's about to go into the diner and a guy's kicking off with his wife and, about to slap her and stuff. And Reacher doesn't say anything. He just looks at him. And the guy apologizes, says he won't do it again, says he's having a bad day. But it's like, he hasn't done anything. He hasn't said anything. But that man has acknowledged in those few seconds of staring at Reacher, this man is going to absolutely smash him to pieces if he doesn't do what he's told or isn't nicer. It's brilliant.
And there's other characters it reminds me of that I really like as well. So Ray Donovan, which is a show that
I will have to watch it. I will. I know because you love it.
I love that show. It's on Showtime in the US and it's been on.
Okay,
Sky,
I'll watch that. And you watch Bosch.
That sounds fair. That sounds fair. But he is not a particularly. It's just one of those characters. Like some things about him, you go, "Oh, don't do that," but then you do get to care about him, and you hear about his childhood. But equally, you also wouldn't mess with him, and he's got that quiet confidence. But the other person I meant to mention before was I love the film Get Shorty, possibly my favorite film of all time. Not many people would actually say that.
No.
I feel that way about it.
Wow.
But the Chili Palmer, the John Travolta character in that, he's just oozes quiet confidence. He's every room he walks in, he's in control. Whoever's attacking him, you just know it's not going to go their way. And he says similar things where he's like, he'll look at, and both those characters, him and Ray Donovan, will, even if they're doing dodgy, shady stuff over here, they'll look out for the little person, or they'll make sure like a child isn't hurt, or they'll make sure that somebody, it's almost like they're in this world of both those characters, in a world of kind of crime, but their code means that everyone else has got to be okay. They've got the softer side. Yeah. I mean, this is a little bit different because he's more of a military man, and he's more about, well, he's kind of about the system, but he's also kind of lost faith in the system, I think. So
yeah,
and again, there's a big thing about who he can and can't trust. And I guess I mentioned Roadhouse before, and I guess in some ways there's a similarity as well with the whole, and it reminds me a bit of Midnight Sting or Digstown, which is another film I really like, because it's got that whole thing of like a small town that seems really pleasant and happy and everything, but really it's because it's a protection racket. It's a protection racket, and you need someone from outside to start unpicking it. And once they start unpicking it, the few good people will start to turn. And there's some, you got like Bruce McGill is in this, which made me think about many films like Time Cop and loads of other stuff from back in the day. In a way, he's possibly the only person who took me a little bit out of the show, sorry,
right.
Because I recognize him so much. And when you're really immersed in a show and you're just thinking about the characters, you're not thinking about who the actors are, you're not thinking about, and sometimes seeing a show when you don't know many of the people from anything else is quite handy.
Yeah.
Although I've seen Alan Richardson in other things, never quite like this, so I kind of forgot who he was. I didn't really know Willa Fitzgerald, who was brilliant as Roscoe. Didn't know her from anything else either.
Did you not watch iZombie?
No.
Because Malcolm Goodwin was in that.
Okay.
So you see, he was the only one like you where I watched it, and I was like, it's not that he took me out of it. It was just that it was a little bit more difficult to kind of look past him, because for 70 episodes I've watched him as Clive Babineau, who's a cop investigating stuff, and then he's playing another cop in this. And I thought, oh, all right, what's he going to do? But he's really, really good, because very quickly he establishes that Oscar Finley is not Clive, and he's a very different. He's the Tweed Tornado, as Richard calls him at one point. He's very, very particular, and he is very, very clear, and he has a very strong code there again. But to begin with, he's very much trying to establish his authority by saying, look, I'm the lead detective. This is my town. You're in my space, and Reacher won't comply. So they're constantly butting heads to begin with, because they just don't see eye to eye.
And they almost find this middle ground, because Reacher has to kind of work with other people, lean into the system a little bit.
Yes.
And not kill too many people. And then Finley has to almost go, I want to do things by the book, but actually this town is so dirty.
Yeah. That's
not going to work either. So I'm going to have to, and I love their kind of almost buddy cop relationship, which is why there's a little part of me, because I know like he's a drifter, so there's the fact he's a drifter really appealed to me. So I'm like, Littlest Hobo, The Incredible Hulk, two of my favorite shows as a kid. Yep. But rather than going to a different town every episode, it's every season or every book.
Yes, every book.
But there's part of me is like, I'm so invested in Roscoe and Finley now.
I know.
I don't want him to go off and meet another detective and another, other people. I almost want, but then actually I know there's no other story to tell in that town really. So it'd be interesting to see if they do shift it to recurring characters, or if Reacher will just be the kind of one true north. Will he be the only thing, the only connective tissue from season to season?
Yes, he will, from what I understand it. So I've not read all of the books, but from reading about this, I understand that the books take place all across the world. So that's not just in America. There's some in the UK. There's some in Europe. There's a couple and they're all a bit different. So some of them might be more espionage focused. I don't know which one it is, but like within the first few pages, he's grabbed in a van and taken somewhere, and it's part of like a CIA black ops site, and they need his help for something. And that's basically how he's recruited for this mission. And that's like one book. And then the people behind the show have said don't expect the seasons to follow the books. So season 2 will not be book 2 because we can go anywhere and do anything. And because they're standalone stories-ish with some recurring characters, like, the sniper in this one from his unit, we can jump to something else. So we can say, what would make a really good story to follow this one? You don't want something that, it's a bit samey. It feels a bit too much like season 1, you can do something radically different, which is a bonus of this show. Like some shows, you settle into a rhythm and a routine and you know what's coming. You're like, oh, okay, we'll get to this kind of a show. With this, you can break that because this first season was all about corruption in the town, money laundering, the police being completely broken, the town being incredibly racist and built on mad hunters and all this kind of stuff, versus the next book could be, I don't know, he's infiltrating an underground fighting ring or whatever it might be, It could be anything that he needs to do. So I'm kind of looking forward to it because I have no idea what they're going to do next. And
I think you mentioned about the sniper. I love the fact that he's like this lone wolf character, but as things go to shit, he's got people he can call on.
Yeah.
Reminded me a bit of the Equalizer.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So, and there's even elements of when 24 was good, so very early on, first 3 seasons maybe, when it didn't stop becoming really ridiculous.
Yeah.
With one man saving the entire world.
Yes.
There was elements of that. It's just that it's that, I'm really good on my own, but actually if I put these other people around me, I'm even better.
So there's that moment as well when he calls Neagley, and she's investigating stuff for him, and we've met her through the show like once or twice, and it's not until like the third meeting or something when they're in the strip club, and she takes down the man who's touching up the woman, the stripper, and he goes, "Oh, she fights really well," and he goes, "She should do. I taught her." And then she calls him Sarge or something. At that point, you realize she was with his unit, but they haven't told you that. They haven't foreshadowed it. They don't. And it's like, that's such good storytelling. It was so well done.
Because equally, his whole unit could still be out there somewhere and he could be bringing in different people depending where he is and what he needs. Yes. Which is also really exciting.
But it's just like he said, where's the rest of the unit? I don't know. Like I think he probably does, but he didn't trust her to tell her. But he's got people he can call on that have very settled skills like her. And like when Finley at one point where they're doing the raid, and he says, "Oh, maybe I should do this." And Neagley says, "Do you have experience of shooting so-and-so's with a target with this range and the scope in this wind at night?" "No, I have." And she takes him out like that, just like that. Yeah. She knows what she's doing. It's like, yeah, okay, I'm going to refer to you because you're the specialist and you know what you're doing. So I'm looking forward to others popping up. Just be like, "Oh, we need someone. I need some help doing this," and you can call on someone. Oh man,
and it's that kind of thing that in other shows might seem really contrived, but they've done it in such a way, like you said, that it works. It's a man who's very private, doesn't tell you much about himself, but he knows people he can call. And again, it's that thing. These quiet, confident people I get drawn to in these kind of shows, but also you're like, oh, he's got people that are really loyal to him, so he must be really loyal to them. And I like that as well. It's that combination of like this kind of somebody's very good at what they do, but they're not showy about it.
Yeah.
But they also are the person that other people would take a bullet for. And I've read a few articles like, this is a very dated show. It's like bringing back 80s and 90s action movies. It's like, I don't think that's a bad thing anyway.
Nope.
But I don't think it is. I think it has got the nuance of a more modern show with the other things. I mean, we barely talked about the action. Now, the action in this for a TV series is ridiculous.
Yes.
And sustained and believable. But it never quite crosses into that almost John Wick kind of, oh, this person's like almost supernaturally good.
Yeah.
And that, I think as those films have gone on, it's gone from, oh, he's really good at what he does, to this is a bit weird, to this is kind of
supernatural,
a heightened reality and almost supernatural. Whereas this is a massive guy with loads of training, really, and a bit of a smart mouth who doesn't take any shit from anybody.
No. Yeah.
And and in some ways, it was the trailer. I was just like, he's just hit someone with a tray in the face. I haven't seen someone hitting someone in the face with a tray in a prison scene for years. That used to be in everything. That was a standard thing, and now here we are.
So if this had been done in the 80s or 90s, there was a couple of scenes where very much you knew what was going to happen, and they didn't do it. So we're spoiling the show, as we said, when jumping around. But there's a scene where he ends up staying in the motel with Roscoe. And now if this was the 90s, you would have had a blatant tit shot for no particular reason, just because she would have got her boobs out, because it's that kind of a film in the 90s. And the other thing was, as the hero character, the lead character, he would have slept with her because they were alone together, just because it was an opportunity and they had feelings for each other, even though they didn't know each other. It would just happen.
He forgot to bring a book. Yeah,
that'd be it. And it would just be like, oh, God. But they didn't. It didn't have any of that. There's lots of modern stuff in this. So given that the book was written however many years ago now, at this point, they have updated it. They have modernized it. And, this is the closest it's been to, is it in the Killing Floor? Is that what it's called? First Killing Floor.
But I think as well, what I liked about
1997, it was published.
You almost get a sense that she likes him first.
Yes.
And there's an element of like, and things do happen between them. But you get a sense that she likes him, but not like it's, usually, again, go back to the old school thing. It's like the man is just, just another woman on, notch on the bedpost. And the woman is probably, oh, but I really like you. Like really old school.
Yeah.
But actually, in some ways, it's the other way around. He starts to like her more, I think, over time. And she's more like, oh, is a really good-looking guy that I haven't seen before that's in the town. And it's a bit of a role reversal. But it's like the relationship between them is really subtle. It's just like little glances or things they say to each other. You go, oh, I think these two really like each other, but they're not sure whether they should do anything about it.
And she makes the first move, remember, as well. It's not him. So that's the other thing. He just kind of is carrying on just as is. And he understands that this hasn't really changed anything. She's still a cop and she's still good at what she can do.
I wasn't sure. I thought perhaps she'd left maybe a shower gel behind. She'd gone into the shower just to get it. Or,
clearly.
Shower, but apparently not.
No. But I liked her character. There again, she took no shit from anybody. She had a mouth on her. She stood up for herself. She took down some guys. She shot a lot of people quite comfortably by herself, didn't need his help, and he didn't go back to suddenly rescue her. So she was quite capable of taking care of herself. Thank you very much. Yeah. So
it reminds me of, you don't watch Ozark, do you? Or do you?
I watched part of the first season.
Okay. So there's a character in that she reminds me of quite a bit.
Okay.
Who's very good. But, so what is your favorite fight and what is your favorite put down?
Oh God, that's a good question. The prison fight, both of them in the cell and in the kind of showers, was particularly good because it was incredibly brutal, and Reacher took out 6 men in incredibly painful ways that some of them will be maimed for life. I really enjoyed that one. I enjoyed Hangman on the fire escape. That was quite good. What about you? What were some of your favorites?
I see, put it on the spot there.
I'm trying to think of some of the other fights now. Like
guys, the young guys.
Oh, outside the motel.
Yeah,
with the beer drinking and there's 4 of you. I'm going to break 3 of your wrists.
It's like, why only 3? Or one of you's got to drive to the hospital. I think that was in the trailer.
Yeah,
and I think that was the bit that I went, this has fallen out of my brain. I will be watching it. I mean, it's a hell of a sign. Like my wife and I don't really binge much TV at all because either one we do on our own, but there's very few shows that we both like and have got the time to watch that way. I think we watched this in 3 nights.
Yes,
because it was like, should we put another one on? We might as well just put another one on.
Go on.
And that's to me a really good sign of a show that you just like. But it was these moments. It's like. And people go, so what it's about was it's kind of really action driven, but it's also kind of snarky, but actually it's also a really good like investigation detective kind of show.
Yeah.
I think at the time, a few of us were saying it's almost like someone who can fight and has detective skills, almost like they finally did Batman, plainclothes Batman, but now they're the latest Batman film has kind of covered similar ground.
Okay.
But you haven't seen that yet.
I have not yet. No, that's to be watched by me.
Yeah. So, but yeah, he's a detective who could fight rather than a ninja, which is good. Yeah, I think this may be the show that I've ever watched that feels the most made for me.
Yes.
Because it's got all the character stuff I like. It's got all the kind of intrigue of the plot, but also people get the crap kicked out of them.
Get their comeuppance.
And they get shot. And it's like, it's the stuff that, when I was a teenager, that's the only bits I would have wanted was like the window dressing, I suppose. And as I got older, so I got more into indie films, and I just wanted the character-driven stuff. Now I've kind of gone, I'm at an age, I'm like, I want a bit of both of those things. You very rarely get it because people go, oh no, we're just going to lean into this way, or we're going to lean that, or we're going to go, I don't know, I haven't seen a Fast and the Furious film, I can only guess. We're going to go that way. And this is just like, and yeah, in some ways, I don't know, is it old-fashioned, or are we has the world become too cynical? Because to me, this is just really good storytelling with a compelling set of characters doing interesting things. And isn't that what good television should be?
Yes, it should be. So if whatever the location, whether it's a town, whether it's a space station, whether you're on a ship, the Rocinante, with good characters, on Earth or Mars or the Belt, or whether it's a town in the middle of bumfuck nowhere in America with a very large man come to town to solve a problem, it works. If it's well written, if the character feels real, if it's earned and given, and it's not just doled out just cause, then it makes sense. Like even the character work with Finley is really, really done really well. Like all the way through, he keeps saying one thing to Reacher until the point comes where he basically tells him the truth because he thinks they're basically going to die. They're on a suicide mission. And Reacher's just kind of like, well, why didn't you tell me that? And he's like, well, it's not something I really share with people. And that's just a complete flip of all the way through. Reacher doesn't really share anything or the truth, or, he keeps it to himself. He doesn't even cry until he's told he can because of everything that's happened. And then Finley kind of tells him the truth that, his wife is dead. He's not that he's divorced, and he's not that he's waiting to call her and stuff. And again, it's just such a different character to what the actors played before. It made Finley feel so very, very real.
I think at that point, it's like they suddenly we've got so much in common because we both kept it's weird how they've become close, but they've both kept each other at arm's length.
Yeah.
And then suddenly they're very vulnerable. It's just, that's why it's a little bit like, oh, but please keep in touch with these people. Even just ring them up. Just say hi in the next series. Just say, how are you doing? But it's that weird thing because I think from some of the things you talk about then, I'm thinking that of recent shows, The Expanse, Last Kingdom, and possibly Ray Donovan, are, to a lesser extent, maybe Better Call Saul, are shows where when a season ends, I'm like, and a couple of days later, I'm like, I miss those people. I miss those people being in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I can't wait for the next series because they're back, and you back in that world, and it's that immersive thing. So for this, I'm like, I miss the people, even though I watched it so quickly. I'm like, I miss these people. Then it's like, but I might not see any of them again apart from him. And then you go, that's how he must feel. And suddenly the audience is the character because it isn't a traditional ensemble piece. It's this again. And it's weird, like I say, Linus Hobo was different. It was a dog. The Incredible Hulk was different because you had the journalist that was following him around.
Yes.
The kind of always happening.
Yep.
But other than that, and it was only, even like Quantum Leap, it was one episode. So by the time you got to know people, it was, it's all right, I'm going to meet some more people next episode. But when you've watched, was it 8 hours of telly?
Yep.
That's quite a long time. And then you're like, so you almost do have that sense of like, we're moving on now to another place, like he is, which means they've set a very high bar. And I think, they're going to have to put the same level of meticulous detail in the casting,
yes,
and the writing and the direction, and everything with every season, because you don't want a show like this to go slowly downhill.
No.
So, but then equally, it's not one story; it's a collection of stories with the same character. So there's in some ways less risk. And
Yeah.
actually, what they might do, they might make the mistake that something like Heroes made, which was the idea of Heroes was different people in every season.
Yes.
And then they went, oh, people like these people.
We'll
People
serve
like me.
the actors,
Yes.
not the show.
Yeah, and I will keep them in and keep them in. And then, oh, actually, then everyone who's good's got to be bad. Everyone's bad's got to be good. Let's turn it into the WWE.
Yeah.
And then it just went, and the writer's strike happened, and it kind of, the show fell on its arse. But it's almost like, well, no, don't give the audience what they want, because people like me are going, no, I want the two people back in it because they're his friends. And they want to be together. It should be like lethal.
Don't listen to them. Don't listen
But
to
don't
them.
listen to it at all. Just and actually make the fact that he has to keep moving on.
Yeah.
Because maybe tomorrow he will want to settle down, but just still tomorrow he'll just keep moving on.
Have you seen What We Do in the Shadows?
No, and I should, and I know everyone keeps telling me, you included, that I should.
Because there's another actor from there that's called Harvey Gillen, who is Jasper, the doctor who looked at the bodies, the kind of slightly camp and weird and a funny weird one. He's from What We Do in the Shadows. So when he turned up on screen, I was just like, it's Camo. And of course, it's not. It's someone else. But it just that threw me as well. That was a little odd, but it was good. It was good, you know. The rest of it, I kind of forgot about the rest of the characters. It was just because they were fresh. But I'm just, next season could go anywhere. And if it's a really good one, and then they go, oh, we're only doing 3 seasons, you go, okay, now I know I've got 3 good stories.
Yeah.
It's not going to be like, and they'll never find out. I won't do a final episode to wrap it up. And the next season, it's like, you don't need it. You've had the story. It's done. He's still out there like Quantum Leap, like Sam, jumping from life to life, trying to put right one thing wrong. This next
I'll start talking about the reboot of that's been commissioned.
Yes, interesting stories coming out about that.
Ernie Hudson has been cast, I believe.
Yes, and one of the lead actors has been cast.
Interesting.
But the good news is Donald P. Belisario is involved in the show.
How old is he now?
As old as God's dog.
He was making TV shows when I was a small child, which
Correct.
means
He's in his late 80s, I think. However, also the lady who was, I think, a producer, but she also did the voiceover for the show. She's involved. Yeah. Uh-huh. And it's a continuation. It's not a reboot.
I'm just imagining the Zoom meetings with them. So, you're on mute, Donald. Donald, you're on mute.
I'm not on mute. I can talk perfectly well. Oh, God.
Did someone say Airwolf?
Anyway, we straight
but quickly, before I lose my credibility, was Airwolf?
Donald P, maybe.
I thought it was.
Let's have a look.
Or was it Stephen J. Cannell? He's the other one.
Oh, you may have just strayed into
got it wrong. Please, can you edit this?
Donald P. Belisario. Well done.
Oh.
Well done.
As the proud owner of Airwolf pajamas as a small child, I shouldn't have got that wrong. That's good.
Well, at the moment, Donald is in fact 86.
86.
Yes,
okay.
Bless him. So, yes, he's doing all right. He's doing all right. Anyway, Reacher.
Total tangent there.
So good. So good. Alan Richardson, amazing in the role. A lot of pressure on his shoulders to lead the show as well. And
what big shoulders, Steve? What big shoulders they were.
Extra 30 pounds of shoulders. But he just did it so well. He was convincing as the most terrifying man in any room. He was a smart character as well with his investigative things. And just like little moments, like he went into that bar and a guy kind of like tries to throw him out. And Richie goes, "You're a boxer, right?" "Yeah." "Southpaw?" "Yeah." And they just, by studying him and picking up little details, he's worked out who the man is, what kind of a fighter he is, what he's going to do, what to beat him, or, oh, they did so-and-so, what's that? That's something that's only taught in Brazil. Therefore, they're not Mexican, they're Brazilian mercenaries. And you're like, ooh, okay, right. So just a worldly man who's seen things.
What would happen if Arnie was Sherlock Holmes?
And not Austrian.
That's true.
Although he has played out most nationalities, but he's always still Austrian. That's
true. Well,
it's like Sean Connery.
Yes.
He was played Russian and Egyptian with Scottish accent.
I blame his dialect coach.
Oh God, yeah. Anyway, I think we're done. Yeah, Reacher, really, really good. Such a fantastic show. I'm probably going to rewatch it fairly soon, to be honest. Even though
I'm in that quandary. I'm like, I've got Last Kingdom. I'm partway through. I still haven't watched Picard, the new series, season yet.
Yep.
Everyone says really good, and I'm like, but I also still want to really go back and watch this again. But that seems like a bad use of my time. But I want to, so I probably will end up watching it again.
I'll rewatch it again soon, I think-ish, and then the next season will be next year. It won't be this year because by the time they've shot it and filmed it and everything, it would either be right at the very end, which I don't really.
I don't think they've done like a Picard of like filming almost two back to back.
No,
I think it'll probably take a little bit more time. I guess the one benefit they've got is they have, because quite often contracts from watching the Tie and That Guy episodes about The Expanse, a lot of the time I go, why was that person recast, or why did that character not come back? Because they're contracted for a season or two seasons, and then they can't get them back. It's one of the reasons Jared Harris's character has never come back in The Expanse, is because he's just so busy. So I guess the thing with this, like, well, as long as we've got him on a long contract,
yes,
everyone else is new. So it actually they could be relatively quick. And I guess for him, it's a bit like Chris Hemsworth being Thor. It's like, I don't want too long a gap because at some point I'd like to loosen my trousers and maybe, eat something a bit different, train a little bit less. So let's maybe do it while I'm in the peak.
Well, if they filmed it this year, I mean, so we're talking now in 2022, the show aired in February. So I think if they filmed it this year, it could air February next year. End of January, start of February again, and keep the kind of same sort of season.
You start putting throughout a year. It's very hard. You wouldn't be able to maintain that rhythm.
No, so I think one a year and probably February next year would work. So I think that would be good. That'd be really, really good. And I just can't wait for it. But yes, other great shows in the meantime. If you do want something, go and watch Jack Reacher. Go and watch Bosch. Go and watch Ray Donovan. And you'll get similar things, but not quite the same, but strong characters with strong moral codes. That's definitely worth your time. So, right. So are we ready to give it a score? We don't normally for a TV show because we don't really talk about TV shows much, but I'm happy to.
Okay.
Shall I go first?
Okay.
There wasn't anything about the show that I didn't like, except that we haven't got season 2. And I can't take a bag off for that. He was perfectly cast. He fit the role brilliantly. He was terrifying. He spoke when he needed to. He was silent when he needed to be as well, and communicated so much. The character work was brilliant. The writing was excellent. The one-liners were never too cheesy, and they didn't fall into some of the traps we've talked about from 80s and 90s action films. They updated the book for the current era and perhaps some of the character interactions, and it worked so good. It's one of the best shows I've seen in ages, action shows. So I'm happily going to give it easy, comfortable 5 out of 5 bags.
Nice. So without just saying exactly what you said, I pretty much agree with you. And like I said at the start, it feels like a show that like fell out of my brain. Yeah. And I thought that about other shows when you go, oh, maybe not this bit, maybe not that bit. But this was like, I at no point did I think, well, I would have done this slightly differently if I was making the show. I just went, oh, yeah. But the only bit, the final kind of big firefight was the only bit I found a little bit, I wasn't quite like, really? And they're all kind of going to be again, spoilers, they're all going to make it through and they're all kind of, I don't know. I found that a little bit, let's put the team together and do this thing at the end. But then I'm not sure how else it could have ended. Yeah. Really. But yeah, overall, brilliantly cast, funny when it needed to be, emotional when it needed to be, dark when it needed to be. Yeah, it's just, it's the program I never knew I really needed or wanted until they made it.
Yeah.
And now I want more of it, please.
Yes, please. Thank you, please. Nick Santoro. Thank you. Thank you, please. Right. So have you seen Reacher? If so, get in touch with us in all of the usual ways. Blah, de blah. You know the score by now.
5.
Yeah. 5 bags from Pete. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. 5. Did I say? I didn't say 5.
Did you say 5? Is that okay?
I don't know. No.
Okay. 5 bags from Pete. 5 bags
That's a maximum. That's... You can go, oh, they're doing a TV show. I wonder why. Well, there's probably because
it was so awesome.
Really good.
I mean, we're talking about it for about an hour. So that's why. Yeah, there you go. Reacher, go and watch it. It's awesome. We'll be back at some point with another episode.
About something else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to wrap us up, Pete? Can you remember how?
Thank you for listening. If indeed you still are.
Good night.
Good night.
You have been listening to Bags of Action. No bullshit. You'd better stick around for the next episode, because if you're lying, I'll be back.